Hello again and welcome back to another episode of Parts Talk. Today I am joined by social media influencer, former service advisor, trainer and ambassador for the auto industry, Chris Craig. Chris shares his experiences working in the automotive dealership environment and what it takes for us to continually creating value while improving the customer experience. I hope you enjoy. As always, please remember to comment, like and share this podcast. If you like what you hear and would want to make a donation, you can find the information on how to do so in the description box. Let's begin. As you know, my program is called Parts Talk, and it's kind of different from yours, but I want to bring light to the information on what takes place inside the auto industry itself, particularly dealerships. And individuals such as yourself who have this vast amount of experience can share to the outsider when he walks into a dealership what to expect. Mm-hmm. And when you see people running around, right? And they're basically busy doing other stuff because it's such a fast-paced industry, right? Yes. Everything is just go, 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 go. And customers bring their car in, they just want to get the service done and out. But at the same time now, we have to go back into a little bit of the history as to, the perception. Where did we go wrong in terms of how people view us, right? Working in the industry, because they think about the average garage, workshop, dealership as we're just going to rip them off. So that is something that we kind of have to try to get over at that part. And myself, having been working in the industry for like more than 20 years, right? I'm currently not in it, but I am in it because I work in transportation now. Okay. However, I've been in the dealership setting for more than 20 years. I know exactly what goes on from the bottom all the way to the top. I've been a manager for at least 15 years. And I know that without the proper leadership in a dealership, that dealership sucks, right? From the moment you walk 100%. in and you do an environmental scan of that area, you know exactly if that dealership is a well-oiled running machine.
That's
right?
Correct.
So without further ado, just let my viewers let anyone know what this conversation is about, and just introduce yourself and let me know exactly what you're all about.
Yeah, sure. Name is Chris Craig, 2 first names, Chris MF Craig. If you find me on TikTok is where you found me. I've been in and out of the automotive industry arguably since 2012 when I graduated high school. During high school, I had 3 years of automotive education in VOTEC. I graduated top of that class, which got me started into college. From there, I completed my associate's degree in automotive technology, which is like tech school. I then took the dive and decided to do another 2 more years, and I got a bachelor's degree in automotive business management. So it's a business degree, but hyper-focused into the automotive industry, which is where a lot of my book knowledge comes from, and that stuff where I can just regurgitate information on TikTok, that's where a lot of that comes from.
Okay.
I've worked in the industry in several different fields. I've been a working technician in an independent shop. I have a ton of parts experience, but not in dealerships and retail stores like Fisher Auto Parts. I worked management at an AutoZone during college. And then I had my service advisor experience, which is across 3 different manufacturers up until now, where I'm no longer a service advisor, but now I'm just a TikTok service advisor, so to speak.
Okay, but based on your content though, and I'm gonna put your channel down in the description so people can find you. I find, like I told you before, I find it very fascinating, informative, and entertaining, so to speak. If they want to learn a lot about the auto industry, when I came across your content, I said, wow. And I mean, this guy nails it. He has it right down to where exactly I wanted to let a lot of people know exactly what is going on. Right. But based on where you started and where you are now, what is your overall view of the industry right now?
The industry as it stands, we are facing large amounts of change, and that mostly comes from what we've all been dealing with, which is the COVID pandemic, and that kind of changed the face once again of how automotive is working. And in addition to how COVID has changed things as far as parts availability, technician availability, because they got to take 2 weeks off at certain points in time, and the volume has just increased so much, and plus the workforce is starting to diminish due to COVID and stuff like that. Internal to the industry, we're seeing a lot of warranty process changes in my experience. I worked for a Ford manufacturer, well, not the Ford manufacturer, but a Ford dealership. And one of the major issues Ford faced was there was a door latch recall that technicians weren't completing. They would take the new parts and they would throw them in the trash, state that they did the job, and ship the car. get paid for
Wow.
that time. Yeah, it was a
Mhm.
huge fraudulent situation that it's for a couple different reasons. But what happens is now we have additional recalls on top of that, and now we have additional warranty procedures like taking actual pictures of the job as you go,
Yeah. Yeah.
which creates all new layers. So the industry is always constantly changing, but the problem is how do you communicate that to your customer base, because they really don't understand any of that. All they see is a shop and a car, and I need it fixed.
Yeah.
And that's part of that headache and problem. I'll have a door latch recall come through the door, for example, same topic, and we'll do the recall in maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes, but I can't release the vehicle until Ford does this right here,
Yeah.
and it examines the pictures and knows that we actually did the work. So it just adds a layer of complexity for our customer base.
Yeah. 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 And I know that you mentioned that you went to school for automotive, but did you also study to be a service advisor?
Actually, yes, I did. My instructor in college had a PhD. He actually wrote 2 books, and I still have them to this day. And as a matter of fact, with my new occupation, I was reading them because it's about strategic business planning. We dive deep into dealership operations, each department, how they mesh and how they don't mesh, DMSs and things of that nature. And we also discuss service consultants, service advisors, parts department, parts management, and we even discuss some ownership level stuff with dealerships as well. So I did actually technically go to school for that portion for that position.
Yeah. And why I mentioned that is because I'm from the old school where you go to a dealership and you work from the bottom up, right?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
work right across all departments. You try to understand the dynamics that works in parts, service,
Sure.
sales,
Sure.
even to be a lot attendant, because I've known persons who started out as a lot attendant and then they ended up being a service manager or a marketing consultant or something of the sort, or a sales rep, right?
Mhm.
And they understand every part of the dealership itself. However, what I've seen in the later years is that because of the big egos, I call them, the persons at the top, they're bringing in other people now who, because of their networking, they don't understand nothing that goes on in a dealership and how a dealership management runs, right?
Mhm.
And they fail to understand that there are actually schools out there that are teaching people the dynamics of working in a dealership. And the theory is just to recruit these individuals into the dealership itself. But they're not looking at that. They only think that the only persons that learn to work in a dealership are just mechanics, right? So part of the, is it a problem with the schools, or is it a problem with the dealership not looking? That's the question where I'm at right now, and it's one of the reasons why. Well, because there's a myriad of reasons as to why the dealership environment is suffering.
Mhm.
So what do you think about that part?
I'm going to cut right in the middle of all that, and I'm going to say it's dealership training. We'll send our technicians to different ASE certification courses, different manufacturer certification courses, and get them trained up because they have to actually do some of the work that they do. But as a service advisor, I've seen it so many times, it's myself included. We'll hire somebody, we'll get them their credentials, their logins and everything. We'll hand them an iPad, a clipboard, and everything they need. And then we'll actually pick up our leg and kick them right out in the service lane, and they'll sink or swim. Yeah. There is, in my experience across 4 dealerships, absolutely no training for a service advisor. It's a sink or swim situation. And that is why when you go into a dealership, every service advisor you work with is going to be completely different as far as processes go. And your experience will vary because there's nothing consistent about all of them because they learned on their own without any management, leadership, support, clear and concise guidance, and et cetera. So I would say training at the dealership level will be one of the number one issues that they face.
Yeah, because a lot of dealerships, well, I worked in the Caribbean for a number of dealerships. Well, not a number of dealerships. I worked for at least 3 different dealerships, 3 different manufacturers: Toyota, Subaru, Ford, and Toyota, Subaru. Yeah, those are the major 3. But of course, Ford has a number of other things, right? Such as motorcraft batteries and all these things. But what I find is that so far only Toyota and Ford as manufacturers has their own internal training system, right? And the dealership itself has to have their own training apart from that in order to get the employees synchronized as to where the mission, the vision, and the values of that dealership is supposed to be, right? So when a customer walks in or drives in his car, they know exactly what their dealership is all about. You get what I'm saying? So because the leadership of that dealership drives the vision of that dealership. So they want to establish their own culture and set themselves apart from everybody else. However, the manufacturers themselves now have their own internal training as to where, enlighten the dealership and the individuals as to where their mission is to go in terms of a long-term strategic planning. So those are some of the things. But how can the dealership itself, who is profit focused, concentrate on the direction that the manufacturer itself wants to go? Because having worked with Ford and having done my Ford certification with them as well, right? You still carry that number right across the board. And so you can walk into any Ford dealership, present that number and get it. And they'll go into the system and know exactly how much training you have gotten over the years and where you and where your certification is, right? But what I find is some other dealerships, they don't basically do that. Because I've known guys who went to Kia, work with Kia, and when they came to Toyota, they have to start all over again because the training is completely different.
Yes. Yeah, and I've experienced now, my dealerships actually were pretty similar. I've worked in a Ford dealership, I've worked in a Toyota dealership, and my other dealership would be Chrysler. And Chrysler also had online testing that you had to do to be a service advisor, to be certified. Yeah. Here's part of the problem, and it'll stem back to training again. I have seen where a dealership wants to get a service advisor up and running as fast as possible. And they'll actually, in the background, assign somebody else to go online and do that online testing for that service advisor. So they're certified on the books and ready to go right away. To connect manufacturer and dealership in a more cohesive sense, I hate to talk about surveys because surveys are in my opinion, one of the issues in our industry. They serve a purpose, but they're not serving the purpose that you would think they serve. If a dealership had a stronger focus on manufacturer surveys, and those surveys utilized by the manufacturer is going to achieve what they want from their customer base. If you combine those two objects, the training as far as dealership level, their own personal culture, in addition to the manufacturer's culture, will start to mesh a little bit better, I think.
Yeah. That is essential. That is basically essential. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were working in the industry?
Well, I'll stick to the service advisor side of the house. One of the biggest struggles of being a service advisor is no matter how good you are at your job to your customer depends on how good everyone else is at their jobs. There's a lot of moving parts in there. I need parts, for example, to be on time. I need them to be ordered correctly. I need my technician, if he says he's going to look at a vehicle, he or she is going to look at a vehicle at this time. I need my processes and procedures and my technology to work so I can effectively communicate with my customer. Essentially my whole role is I'm a customer advocate and I'm the go-between. When I'm speaking to a technician, I'm the customer. And when I'm speaking to a customer, I'm the technician. And if there's misinformation from the technician to the customer, that created problems for me, and I'm the face of the company at this time. Which will skew survey scores, which is the other half of the problem. Is you're heavily weighed on the opinions of others, which you can improve or disimprove with your own customer service skills. But if a smudge mark is left, if a repair is late, if a car wash is damaged or anything like that, if anybody else messes up along the way, it's your survey that hangs in the balance. And that's ultimately why I think we see a lot of turnover for service advisors in the industry as well. That would be one of the biggest challenges, and it's a management level thing because they're the ones that have to kind of hold this thing into a careful little ball and keep it balanced day to day, is making sure all the moving parts mesh. I don't like the idea of technicians over here, parts is over here, service advisors over here, and we don't talk. I mean, we have enough division as far as department in the dealership as it is, but in the service department, we got to be so much more cohesive than the rest. Because we're really up against it with the volume of customers that we deal with and what the problems are when we see them coming off the street, especially. Yeah. That is so important. All three departments, 4 or 5, whatever departments is, they have to be working. They have to be working cohesively, and it goes right back again to leadership. The service manager, the parts manager, the sales manager, they all have to be working together. In the past, and I keep going back to the past, I'm pretty old. You will turn up one day, and then you will hear that they'll be launching a new car, and you're saying, "What the hell is going on?" And then you look outside, you see this brand spanking new car in the lot, ready to be launched and marketed and everything, and there's no parts, there's no service training, there's no booklet, there's nothing, absolutely nothing.
right? And this cannot be done without either the managing director, general manager, CEO, whatever you want to call him. That car wouldn't get there unless he signs off on it, right? And a sales manager won't be able to launch that car unless both of them communicate as to what is going on. But so that was what used to happen in the past. And then you have this backlog of information, people running up and down. Oh, the car is ready to be launched. It is advertised and everything is ready to go out, but yet still parts advisors, service advisors, and managers knows nothing about the car itself, right? So therein lies the breakdown in terms of how, a dealership itself is to be running all on their own, right? So you touched on that, so I just wanted to add that part. That was what was happening in the past, and then you had this, bad perception of, hey, they don't have any parts, the technicians are not servicing, they won't be able to do a lot of things with the car. And then you have this brand new car coming into the shop, sitting down like for weeks or for months, waiting on parts because nobody knows exactly what needs to be done. Happily, it has changed now, but slowly but surely, but it's not 100%, but we're actually getting there. So let me move right along to say, but based on what you mentioned, and I've added, what were some of the strategies you used to, overcome some of the difficulties you face while trying to carry out your job?
Yeah, so strategies I've used is just being better at my own craft. I've found, and I've worked in service departments that were not very cohesive and very difficult to work in. And I've thrived in those environments just through pure customer service. I always, especially when I'm training new advisors, I always tell them that bad news is better than no news. As long as you're communicating with that customer, no one else is really doing that right now as far as service advisors go for the vast majority. As long as you're just shooting a text message out, calling, saying, hey, I don't have anything on your vehicle yet, but I'm hoping it's going to be later this afternoon, maybe tomorrow. You should hear from me in that time frame. If you have any questions, just let me know. And that kind of keeps the customer at bay. And even if their repair took 3 or 4 days or even a week longer than it was supposed to, or the diagnostic took too long or whatever it was, the customer was still happy with me, which made my job a whole lot easier. And if the customer's happy with me and upset with the service, they're still going to come back to the dealership because they have a relationship with somebody and they want to keep that flowing. There's toxicity in the industry. We all know that. And a lot of people have distrust. Even though they had a hard time with my service department in the past, they had a good time with me, which made them keep coming back to me. And I had recurring business and good survey scores. And a lot of my pay plans are always based off of surveys. So customer service is the first and foremost. And then on a bigger scale, how I was producing change is I trained a lot of people. Not only do I educate through TikTok, and I get DMs all the time and comments all the time on how to be a better service advisor, what to do in this situation. I'm trying to help people as much as I can in my own capacity. But when I train people, I try to instill these same values into them. So that hopefully, eventually that will bleed into the industry and then we'll see an actual real change because it can't just be on one person. Yeah.
And for people to be reaching out to you on social media, it simply means that help is needed in the industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're unsure of what their job role and thing is all about. And then it is this cry for, leadership, for direction, for support. It's a big thing that is happening now in the industry. I find it really appalling. But what would be some of your suggestions or recommendations to shops and dealerships based on what you just mentioned?
I would encourage, and most of my issues stem from things like this, I would encourage management to take a more leadership style role. A lot of times what we find, and if you ask people this question, who do you work for? They're going to name their manager. That's who they work for. If I, as a service advisor, said I work for manager such and such, okay, manager such and such works for Mr. Owner. In that scenario, who's working for the customer? Absolutely nobody. Instead, I would reverse that. The manager is a support role. The manager works for the service advisor so that the service advisor, where the rubber meets the road, can do his or her job. If the manager is working for me as a service advisor, I am now working for my customer base, which means the customer service aspect and the actual getting back to fixing cars is the other thing we need to do, can actually happen more fluently. So that would be step one, is just making sure our managers are acting more as leaders, and also just being more human as far as what we require of people in the automotive industry. We work a lot of hours. That's really hard for a lot of people. You gotta, in my experience, especially in the military, if you take care of the people, they'll take care of you. And if you take care of the people's families as an extension of that, they're going to take care of you that much more. And if you're taking away 60, 70, 80 hours of their life every single week for sometimes no reason at all, that's going to affect their own quality of life. If their quality of life is affected, the quality of work will also be affected. So those would be my two suggestions just as a start in the industry.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Because if you work with Toyota, especially from the Japanese standpoint, they will tell you the two main pillars they have is respect for people and continuous improvement, right? And respect for people in all aspects of life, getting them to have a better way of life. However, we have seen a shift with that throughout the years, because anything at all that happens in the economy, whether it's a natural disaster or a global financial meltdown or anything like that, the first industry that gets affected is the automotive industry. So, and they'll start slashing employees, slashing mechanics, slashing hours. So people are going to question, hey, I'm putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Where's the loyalty? Right? And we've seen it happen oh so often. So it's a tough pill to swallow. And that is why you have to try to gain their trust. But at the same time, no, you have to sensitize a lot of people. Hey, we don't know what the future holds, because anything can take a turn. I mean, the pandemic just came upon us, right? And a lot of dealerships were struggling to keep numbers, but at the same time, no, people still wanted their car fixed. So what do? You have to be rotating mechanics, rotating the different employees, the service advisors, the managers, everyone to come in on a regular basis, because they can't help based on what the government instituted, right? Less crowding, social distancing, all these other things happening. So it's something that it's a juggling act, and it's really difficult to do something like that. But at the same time, because the employees are going to say, hey, we still have our lives to live, we have our bills to pay. So how do we get past that dynamic? And it goes into my next question, like what suggestions you'll have in terms of how should we prepare for a market that is constantly changing?
Processes and procedures and SOPs, standard operating procedures, are one of the best things that any company can do to handle change. I don't think that there's any employee out there that can't handle change or isn't ready for change, but leadership has to be absolutely in that process of that change. And if you already have processes and procedures and good training, all of your advisors, all of your parts people, all of your technicians are now on the same sheet of music, and they're executing their job day to day in this current format perfectly, they are prepared for that change. Where we see the problem is everybody's all over the place. Like I said, nobody's trained. So service advisors are doing all their own thing. The technicians are just fed up, so they're doing their own thing. The parts people are on their phones doing their own thing. And then change happens. Well, we're not on the same page anyway. So it's irrelevant that there's a change. We can turn the page, but they're all scattered no matter what. So get everybody together, cohesive right now. And that's how you can prepare for the change for tomorrow. Because if everybody is perfect today, now perfect's not real, but everybody's as close to perfect as today as possible, they're more prepared to turn that page together as a solid unit and then start conducting business in whatever new format's required for the industry.
Yeah. The SOPs are indeed important. And that's why you have to have someone in place like a compliance officer who documents the processes. And then each and every manager has that process in their department to know exactly what contingencies can be used whenever a problem arises, right? So it's a balancing act, and it goes. I'm a big advocate for the industry, as I know, but I tell people all the time, the box stops at the leadership. Who is the person at the top? What kind of experience is he coming with? Does he have a track record of making other dealerships successful in the past, right? Because he determines exactly the direction where your dealership is gonna be going, such as a shop, such as a regular, man on the street working on a garage itself. He all working in a garage. He also has to have some form of leadership qualities in terms of customer service, in terms of time management, in terms of getting certain things done. So people will constantly come back to that individual, because he's also an advocate for the automotive industry. And based on what I've been reading and researching for the last couple of weeks and couple of months, it doesn't look good. Trust me. When you see
it's rough.
It's rough. When you see the Google reviews and the Yelp and the Quora and you go on Reddit and all these comments, they're not encouraging at all. I look forward to seeing more content from yourself, which gives support to the industry. And I wish there were more individuals such as yourself who are going out there, risking, putting your face out there and say, hey, look, this is where the industry is at right now. This is what needs to be done, right? I hopefully your message doesn't go out in vain. And I am with you 100% in terms of your message, getting the information out there, because people need to know, right? And and those who work in the industry themselves, they also need to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, because cars aren't going away.
They aren't.
We're going to have to fix them no matter what.
Yes.
We might, and people that work in this industry have a passion for it. I've worked on cars since I was a teenager, so I have a real heart for this kind of thing. And most people in the industry do. They have a basic interest to learn as much about cars and customer service as they did. So it's really hard to see. And I've seen so many of my friends walk away from the industry just due to the constraints they had in their personal lives, the toxicity. They just couldn't handle it anymore. They were changing who they were as a person because they were just miserable all the time. But this is what they love to do. They just can't find a good capacity to do it in. So I'm hoping that eventually we can breathe enough fresh air into this industry and make a real change.
Yes, definitely. Because when you look at the statistics, especially here in Canada, we go to Statistics Canada, there's over 35 million cars registered on the roads over here. Right, that's more units than people who actually live in Canada. Right, are almost the same. And then you break it down into cars, trucks, buses, tractors, trail. They all need a mechanic to work on them, right? And then out of that 35 million, you have at least 26-27 million that are currently running on the roads. So you go anywhere, they all need to be serviced. And then, like I said, every 3 years, every 4 years, a new model comes out. And then you have used car lots, and then you have this dynamic now coming in with electric cars, EVs. And there was a report coming out now that a lot of customers are complaining they want to buy a used EV, but at the same time, no, they have to be going back to the dealer to service these items because the regular mechanic on the street in the garage has his own shop. He doesn't have the technology yet to service these cars. Right, so it's going to be what I call it now, trying to find the correct word. It's going to be a chain reaction of what the industry is going to be in the next 5 years. And now the schools here have to be catching up to be training students, apprentices on how to work on these cars, right? Yeah,
because they're essentially training IT personnel. Every car has like 23 computers on it. That never used to be the case in the past. And you got to learn. I actually learned binary code and stuff like that in my own personal training. You had to learn a lot about how these processes work as far as software goes, because a lot of the issues we're finding, especially in new cars, is software issues.
Yes.
And a lot of the issues actually don't even have fixes from the manufacturer yet. I can replace the component. I can take the hard drive out of this computer and replace it. The problem is going to remain because the problem is inside that hard drive. And I can't get that fixed until the manufacturer offers a fix. And that's really hard to explain to people sometimes, is that it's a software issue. It has nothing to do with a physical, tangible component.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the problem that we're seeing in vehicles nowadays, in the modern vehicle.
You're so right. I drive a Chevy Cruze, and every time a light comes up, I'm so far. What the hell I'm going to be doing now? I have to call the dealership. They say, okay, bring it back in, and it's just a plug and play. Plug the scanner in, and they download something. Okay, you're good to go. You drive another 3-4 months, another light comes on. Then you get a message, a new software is to be updated, and then you have to bring it in again. I'm like, yo, if I can't work on a car in my own garage, it doesn't make sense. But we're moving away from that because
of thing of the past.
Yeah, because of all this environmental, issue that is going on. So I mean, it's constantly evolving, but it is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and just moving into tomorrow. That's the whole thing, is training the people so that they're ready to handle today, tomorrow, and so on and so forth. Because the industry is always going to be here, but it's never going to be the same as what it was. It's not going to be the same tomorrow as what it is today. It's always going to be a constantly chaining. The training never stops. You're learning new things every single day because new things are coming out every single day.
Definitely so. But in closing, what message would you have like for the younger generation coming in? Because what I find happening is a lot of the younger individuals, like high school persons leaving high school right now, the 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 registration, the recruitment is down getting into the industry.
Yeah.
So what would you say to if you walk into a high school and you want to recruit apprentices coming in or new mechanics coming in, what encouragement would you give to them?
Coming into the industry right now, just deep breaths. It's a frustrating industry. It really is. I mean, working on a car or working with customers alone can be a very frustrating situation. And then when you don't have support of management and you're working in an industry that's as difficult to work in as the automotive industry, sometimes it seems like the whole world's against you. Technicians, like as a service advisor, technicians are mad at me right now because they're not getting their time. I'm bothering parts about parts that haven't come in yet. All of my customers are upset with me right now because I don't have answers for them because the other two components aren't speaking. So deep breaths and just always stay positive and communicate. And whoever's been doing it there for the longest or been doing it for a long time, has been a veteran in the industry, take notes and just listen to what they say. That's a lot of how I learned. There's a lot of great service advisors I've gotten to work under or with at my various dealerships. And I took a piece of each and every one of those, and I conveyed that into my own customer service skills, and it worked out very well for me. So don't be afraid to take a couple of hints from the guys and girls that have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, that is quite encouraging. And one of the things I also reiterate on my channel is that it doesn't stop at being a mechanic. You can branch off into other areas. Right, you can become an aviation mechanic. You can become a marine mechanic.
Possibilities are endless.
Possibilities are endless. You can become one of the most in-demand mechanic right now, which is a elevator mechanic. With all these skyscrapers going up and condos going up on a regular basis, there is a shortage of elevator mechanics. So I mean, the sky is the limit where it's concerned, but you have to put the work in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's step one. And that with the new generation, it's very instantaneous. I can take this right here and I can get any answer or do anything or talk to anybody in the world that I want to right now. And that's a big problem with the new generation, is everything is so instantaneous to them that we need to be at the top of the totem pole wherever we work right now. But it takes several years of work and dedication. Imagine taking several years of work of dedication just to be able to send a text message or look up something on Google. Back in the day, you had to read it. You had to look it up. You had to go to the library, find the book you want to do, go to the right aisle. There's more work involved. So it's trying to communicate the fact that the work industry is still hard work and dedication for years and years and years of your practice, whereas everything else is very instantaneous. And bridging that gap, I think, is part of what we have to do.
Yes, definitely. Well, Chris, I don't want to hold it too long. I really thank you for your time.
Yeah.
To come on my channel and express all of this, because all of what you just said is just pure facts, pure unadulterated facts. And I do hope to invite you again to come and speak about the things that are happening in the industry, and please continue to be an advocate for what we want to do, and hopefully the leadership in the various dealerships actually take note of what our concerns are. Because let me just add before I go, one of the things about my training is that we used to have a thing called a CRU. Back in the Caribbean, what we will do, a group of us as managers, we'll call it island hopping. We'll travel from Jamaica to Trinidad, from Trinidad to Barbados to Grenada to Antigua, right across into Miami. And we'll also go outside of the region to other dealerships. And what we did was we came together as a group of managers, look at each other's dealerships, and we give advice and information while making presentation of where we were and where we are now. And what we did was we implemented benchmarking and best practices in order to move forward. I don't know if that is still going on. I haven't been in touch with them for quite a while, but one of the things I've seen falling off is best practices. And that's what you mentioned earlier about learning from the ones before you, the service advisors. You take a little from here, I take a little from there, and then you incorporate it and make it work. So one of the things I saw coming here to North America, that part of it is missing at the top. A guy comes in at the top, and then they have to send them all the way to Washington or to New York to do training. And I'm saying, but this guy should have already been trained in certain aspects of the job already.
Sure.
Right. So that is one of the reasons why we're struggling to get all the departments synchronized and running as a well-oiled machine, because we're all over the place. And until we have the right leadership in place, we'll continue to be chasing our tails. But that's just my opinion anyway.
No, I agree 100%. If you have all of your managers of each department on the same page, there's cohesion at the above levels, which means there's cohesion at the bottom levels. I mean, everything kind of rolls down the hill of the chain of command. If your managers aren't working together, that means they haven't bridged the gap of processes and procedures between my advisors and your parts people, or my advisors and your technicians for like a shop foreman. If I haven't bridged those gaps, there's no way for my employees to cross, which means there's a gap, there's a chasm, which means communication breaks down, productivity breaks down, and ultimately the one person that suffers the most is the person that's trying to spend money at your dealership or your shop or whatever, which is the customer.
Yes. And that also, they could also institute cross-functional training where, I spend a week in the service department, the service advisor spend a week in the parts department.
Yes, I love cross-training. Yes, 100%. Yes. Yeah. A lot of my people will tell you a lot of my success, and I don't know if it is or not, but the technical knowledge I gained from actually working as a technician with wrenches, the knowledge I learned working as a parts professional and ordering parts and understanding how that part of the system works, all played a role into my success as a service advisor. Just understanding holistically the entire process, because you only know your part of the pie, you don't know the pie.
Yes, I know, and your content speaks volume to that. So that's why I love it so much. But Chris, thank you very much for taking the time out to come on my channel. I really do appreciate it, and I will continue to watch and support your content on TikTok.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much. I'm appreciating what you do as well. People like you and me and others that are going to start following suit, and there's some others out there right now, we're eventually going to breathe that fresh air into this industry. I'm sure of it.
Definitely. Looking forward. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk.
Brother. Thank you. Have a good one, bro.
Okay, same to you. Bye.
Yep.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Remember to rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with a better understanding of the individuals who work in the auto industry. Remember, the videos of these interviews are posted on my YouTube channel, Parts Manager Professional. Until next time, this is Parts Talk.